Welcome everybody to another episode of Stardom. I'm your host, Jukebox Ginger, aka Dylan. I got a very special guest, Kennedy Phillips. How are you this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, considering the circumstances that I'm sequestered inside my lovely home for as long as I can remember, seeing as that the world outside is bricks.
Yeah, it's coming to an end with this COVID. Let me tell you.
With hope, yeah.
Well, that doesn't really affect you. You can work from home though, right? Doing what you do.
Well, yeah, I can definitely work from home, but there's a lot of things about my job that's more than just the working at home bit. There's like studio jobs, on location recording, and everything in between that I end up having to go out and go to those places, and a lot of them close down or just basically said, "Can you just work from home instead?" Uh, it was great for like 5 months, and then I
Yeah.
started realizing, oh yeah, I don't have anywhere else to go outside of this.
So how did you, so first let's kind of tell everybody what you do. Like what are the jobs that you've done?
All right, well, hello, my name is Kennedy Phillips. I bang pots together for a living. For those of you who are not familiar with what my job is, it is a sound designer. Now, usually when films are finished the editing side of their production, they usually don't have all the sound effects that they need to make it sound like it's an actual space within reality. So they hire a sound designer to come in and record all of those sound effects, from footsteps to clothing rustle to shotguns to cars squealing around corners to uh, bespectacled skeletons doing backflips on bikes, whatever your movie ends up being about. A sound designer has to record everything for it and piece it together and go frame by frame to make sure everything's all synced up correctly. Um, you may actually know some of my work if you trawl YouTube or audio dramas at all. I am the sound designer for Has Been Hotel, Hell of a Boss, Satina, Mayhem, and a litany of other cartoons on the internet. I am also known for being the creator of Magus Elgar, which is a fantasy comedy audio drama, and the sound designer for another audio drama, a sci-fi called The Sojourn, made by Space
Okay.
Stock, also known as Daniel Orrit.
Okay. I've watched Hell of a Boss. I loved it. I've watched a couple episodes of Has Been, and then I started listening to Megas, and I totally stopped watching the Has Been because I really got into Megas Elgar.
So, slight reverse. The Has Been Hotel had the pilot. Hell of a Boss has the series.
I watched all of the episodes of one of them.
That would
Hell
probably
of a
be
Boss.
Hell of a Boss then, because
Okay.
that's the only one that has more than one episode.
But Megas Elgar, I loved like because I was a huge fan of the Sword in the Stone. If you ever seen that old,
Yeah, yeah.
and it
I
kind of gave me like a mashup vibe of that, and then like the Black Cauldron kind of vibe to
the
me.
a lot of where I took my inspiration from was from a author known as Terry Pratchett. If you don't know who he was the creator of Discworld. You might know him more commonly for Good Omens. With he actually wrote
Mm-hmm.
with Neil Gaiman, which now has like an Amazon series or some
Yes.
such.
Yeah.
But I loved the way that he did his storytelling. I read one or two of his books. I watched a lot of his BBC films that they made based on his books, and it compelled me to try and write something in that kind of style. So I basically made a story about the whole wizard and apprentice thing, but if the wizard was more of an excitable child than the apprentice was.
Yes. And you totally catch that like that whole vibe in the series. It makes it that much more hilarious too. And isn't the apprentice? Are you like you're Kk, right?
I'm Kk, yes. I also play as the great Fantavar, who probably dies horribly in one of the episodes.
Yes.
And I also play as Magus Sagari, who you
Uh,
might know of in episode 9, where he lives on top of a tower held aloft by a dead space whale.
That's so creative. So as far as the sound effects side goes to it, do you just find like random, like totally random stuff to create these sound effects?
Sometimes. One of the things about my particular field is that I'm actually constantly listening for various uh, acoustic signatures that exist in the world for things that I would really like to use for my own productions. Um, this can be something as simple as like hearing like a bottle like shake in a very unique way, like if you wanted like a water bottle like kind of sound, or
Mhm.
maybe there's a specific whistle that you found that gives off a very death curdling scream. I take those sounds and I will mix them together and like take apart like the different kinds of frequencies and vibrations that they give off, and I'll combine them with other sound effects to create some of my design work. This is actually pretty typical in sound design for films, uh, mostly due to the fact that like a lightsaber doesn't actually exist in real life, but it is a combination of a bunch of different sound effects brought together. Like the sound of like a lightsaber clash is actually somebody taking a hand, like taking a metal pole and like whacking a transformer, like a loose transformer cord, so like kind of crackles. Um, so like I collect props all the time for various sounds and different qualities to them. One of my favorites that I got my hands on was this little thing right here. This thing is an Aztec death whistle that I'm holding in my
Oh,
hands. It's a little clay
okay.
skull with a little hole on the top, and the idea is that you blow into it, and it's supposed to make the sound of like a really terrifying screech.
Okay. And how did you decide to get that?
I had heard it once when I was traveling, and I wanted to get my hands on one of them, so I ended up ordering one online because there's a couple of people that actually make these, and this is like made out of traditional clay, so it looks and feels and sounds exactly like how they would normally sound. You know, I've
Okay.
got other
So,
less like terrifying, egregious sounds. Like I've got this kalimba here
oh, I've seen Columbus, yeah.
for little music notes.
Mhm. So what I do is I kind of research the people that I have on, and I pick a topic, and then I find stories that people post online, crazy, outrageous, funny, clever, whatever, and then I read them. So I found 7 or 8 stories here, and I'm going to read them, and then we're going to discuss them.
Absolutely, go for it, man.
All right. First up, I really wanted to kind of show the appreciation of what you do, like that people don't really see. So some of these are more clever. This first one says, I wear hearing aids, but I didn't get them until I was 18. My hearing issues were never picked up on, but nerve damages from birth means I have a 50% loss in my right ear and 60% loss in my left ear. When I got my hearing aids, I phoned my mom to ask if she knew shops played music. I had no idea that shops played music in every shop my entire life.
You know, there's two things about that that's actually pretty interesting. One is the music that they play in grocery stores is actually by design, not as a means to like fill the air to just like for the sake of it, but it is designed to subtly hack your brain to get you to slow down when you go shopping. When it's playing more easygoing, relaxing music, you go into the store and you slow down a little bit. You take more time. And the more time that you spend in a grocery store, the more it affects your decision fatigue, and you become more receptive to making spontaneous purchases in the store.
Wow.
Think about how many times that you've gone to the store to just buy milk,
Uh-huh.
and you go in, the music's playing, it's really nice, and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna walk and take my time. I'm not in any hurry. and the
Mm-hmm.
milk cart the milk section is all the way in the back of the store because they know that most people go to buy dairy products when they need to
That's
go to the
true.
grocery store for just one thing. And as you're going by it, you're looking at like overflowing produce on all the racks, boxes of cookies all neatly in a row and like overstuffed, almost falling off the shelves. And you're thinking to yourself as you're listening to this relaxing music, do I have cookies? Maybe I need some mayonnaise. Oh, perhaps some hot sauce would be really great for that chili I was thinking of making later. I should really make some chili. I'm going to go and get some beans. I'll be right back. Oh, hey, look, there's meat section. And by the time that you've gone in to buy some milk, you walk out and realize you've spent about $250 and not realize what happened.
Hey, but the music was great. Okay.
On the other hand, I actually had a bit of a I have a bit of a connection with that story in that when I
Hmm.
was really young, I actually had a long history of hearing problems.
Oh wow.
I had chronic otitis media, which is a fancy scientific word for I had lots of fluid behind my eardrums. So
Oh,
I
I've heard
actually had
that.
to get eardrum. I had to actually get plugs in my ear, tubes in my ears to drain it
Hmm.
all out for much of my childhood. And I actually had moments in my life where there was a risk that I could go deaf. Mostly
Wow.
because I was also an avid swimmer. All the way through high school. In fact, they at one point a doctor had approached me in high school. Says, "All right, you have a choice. You can either continue swimming and likely lose your hearing, or you can give up swimming and let your ears heal."
Hmm.
So I made the very unenviable decision of giving up on swimming, which was a very dominant aspect of my life. And I
Wow.
didn't swim for almost a decade. I actually started swimming again a few months ago, and it was a very emotional moment, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I don't think I regret the decision that I made to go to pull that out of my life because I didn't realize that I would find a career, an adventure, if you will, in sound.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. Actually, if that had something to do, like maybe your hearing clearing up as much as did that have something to do with your career choice?
Well, not necessarily. Like with my career choice, it's more likely that I would be affected by hearing damage as time goes on because I'd be having to listen to like really loud mixes of big theatrical productions so I understand what's going on
Hmm.
in any given cut. But I was a lot more careful about my hearing, and
Hmm.
I still have some hearing loss, but it's not as bad as it originally was.
Oh, good. Good. All right. You ready for the next one?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I was at my desk working. Suddenly, this absolutely piercing scream erupted. The sound was so loud that it hurt my ears even when I cupped my hands over them and pressed as hard as I could. Several of us exited the office and ran down the stairs, but that's where the sound was coming from. Turns out the pipes exploded with two 2,000-gallon air compressor tanks pressurized to 200 psi by an industrial screw compressor. The thing
Oof.
that made a train whistle sound like a whisper. I physically couldn't get close enough to turn the ball valve. It hurt too much. One of my coworkers was practically deaf, so he just walked up without a care in the world and shut it off.
Oh boy. I know that like there's some people who are deaf and can't hear those kinds of sounds, but with certain vibrations in the air,
Mm-hmm.
um, there are some deaf people that I know who are still affected by loud noises because it's not like the for some people it's not just the vibration in the ears that
Mm-hmm.
they are picking up, it's the details that come in it. So if like something is playing that's really loud, some people who are deaf could like still feel the pain of it if it is too loud or if it's
Mm-hmm.
over a certain frequency. um but it actually just reminded me of a fascinating sound I came across when I was working on another short film called Zoophobia. Have you ever heard of a white bellbird?
No.
It is a specific type of bird that holds the record for having the loudest sound uttered by a land-faring mammal.
What?
The second like mammal on Earth would actually be like a humpback whale, I think, because like its call can like reach out like thousands of miles.
Yeah.
But an African bell, but a white bellbird makes this call that sounds like a fire alarm and has the same decibel frequency as a jackhammer. What I
Wow.
find really funny about it is that you see this thing like getting ready to do its call, and like its abs are ripped, man. The muscles that thing needs to make that kind of call.
Is
Because
it a big bird? Is it a big bird?
no, it's not a big bird at all. It's like about the size of a pigeon, which makes it even funnier because that's what I think of when I'm looking for a mating call to have my eggs. I want someone to shatter my eardrums.
um, it's funny because I've heard I've been on farms and stuff, and it's weird when you're not used to like waking up to like cows and chickens and stuff. You catch on those things. And chickens and roosters are really loud. I never realized how loud a rooster was. But things out of the normal are what catch you off guard.
Right?
So the next up, my dad was born almost 2 months prematurely, and it forever affected his hearing. He was easily 50 by the time he finally realized he needed hearing aids. I'll never forget being in the car with him, stopped at a light when I could see this annoyed look come across his face. He asked me what the noise was. I said, "What noise?" He said, "That clicking sound. What have you done to my car?" And he said, "You mean the turn signal?"
Oh, jeez. I think it's those little audio cues that we really take for granted as like an
Yeah.
unconscious trigger for how much we are informed of life through those sounds.
Hmm.
That's actually one of the big challenges about audio dramas is when you first start going into it, you think, well, how hard can it be? It's just people talking and maybe a couple of sound effects of explosions or doors closing. But it's not just that. It's not that just makes it a comprehensive experience. The difference between like the good audio dramas and the very simple ones are the ones where they take the time to help you engross yourself in the environment. Um, my favorite stories that I've gotten to listen to are the ones where you can close your eyes and soak in the atmosphere of the place. The waterfall in the distance, the feeling of a babbling brook like right up against the dirt, the wind passing over grass as you sit and look out to the lake, overlooking a massive waterfall falling down. Maybe some birds are chirping nearby. A deer is staring at you as he judges you for just trying to interrupt his drinking time. Fun fact, the deer judging sound does make a noise. It's just not one that we as human beings can hear.
Yeah. They actually do make a noise, like a judging noise.
No, I.
You got me. You got me. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. um, all right. I was hiking in the woods behind my brother's house, about a quarter of a mile away, and it starts to get dark. So I know it's time to turn around and go home. It's then that I hear the sound of a mountain lion scream. It sounds like a woman being ripped in half, and I can't even begin to guess the distance. Maybe 100 feet, or it could be right behind me. I just know the sound is still ringing in my ears, and I suddenly want to shit myself. Uh,
I could see his flight response was getting triggered from that.
I was in Utah visiting family, and it was a small mountain, and I remember we were coming back down, and because the sun was going down, and I couldn't find my phone. It was in my pocket, so I knew it fell out. So I told them, go on, I'll be right back. So I'm going up, and it's right by this creek bed. It's a dried up creek bed. and all you see are these bones like just scattered along the creek beds. So you know there's animals around. But that's just terrifying.
Yeah, I think a lot can be said about what you cannot perceive that makes something a lot more terrifying in your head. A lot of horror films use that to its advantage with its sound design. Um, because a lot of times there's noises that we as human beings can't really like pinpoint, and we end up letting our imaginations run away with ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's even sometimes where you can't actually hear a sound, but you can feel it. A great example of this is you ever see that movie Paranormal Activity?
Yeah. Hmm. A couple of
So
them.
in Paranormal Activity, I highly recommend if you ever decide to go see that movie again, you should see it with, at the very minimum, with a good sound system.
Okay.
Because I feel like 60% of the story is told through the sound design of that movie. If you're like watching it on a phone and you don't hear any of the noises, it's just you're just kind of sitting there and you're like, door opens a bit,
Hmm.
some footsteps went by. But if you listen to it in like with a really good sound system, the subwoofer goes crazy whenever the spectral presence comes in the film. It's a low vibration that is the same kind of vibration that you hear right before an earthquake happens or like a big explosion. You suddenly feel like a okay, danger. And with that vibrating so badly, you start feeling your fingers like dig into your seat,
Yeah.
and you start projecting in your head of like, okay, something bad and something big is coming. But it's not something that you see. It's something that you hear and by that extension feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've never, I can't say I've ever, I mean, I felt like the train, I've been close to train tracks when a train's flying, I've never felt an earthquake, but just the feeling of a train coming by is pretty freaky too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm in
I've
Kansas. In Kansas, like when there's tornadoes, a lot of people will hide under the bridges, and then the way they explain the sound is like this deafening roar of a train just like driving over you.
I actually had a lot of experience growing up in Florida, and there isn't quite as big of a deeper vibration, but there is a serene calmness before a hurricane, where suddenly all the wind dies down for a little bit, and then when it picks up, it just roars and just goes for hours upon hours. I've actually had to go through a few hurricanes in my life. I slept through Hurricane Andrew. I was outside for a lot of Hurricane Katrina and Wilma. Thankfully,
Wow.
Florida didn't get hit very hard by Katrina, but it got hit really hard by Wilma.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but I'll always remember those kinds of storms.
yeah. This is a little off topic, but I remember we were visiting there's like a little indoor zoo in Branson, Missouri, and we're sitting down petting these dingoes. And they're really, I mean, dingoes are really cool, but one of the dingoes was to my left while I was petting these ones over here, and my key fob was kind of dangling. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it completely dismantled my key fob to my car. Didn't make a noise.
Oof.
Not even a little peep. I looked over and the whole key fob was just in pieces. Just some clever animals. All right, you ready for the next one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I was 10 and I got some candy for trick or treat. My mom said that's enough for tonight, so I went to bed and waiting until she fell asleep so I could eat more candy. I crawled to the kitchen and I didn't realize how much noise a candy wrapper made.
You know, there is actually an entire industry of set designers who go out of their way to make props that don't make as much noise. Now, a big reason for this is because when you're on set, a lot of these actors are like really big celebrities, so you are not getting them for ADR. You're not going to be able to replace their dialogue after the fact. So you need to make sure that the stuff that they do have is okay on set, and we can handle it later. So there is a prop master who will make prop versions of objects that normally make a lot of noise. Um, for example, potato chip bags. Potato chip bags make a ton of noise. So what this prop master did is that he made the fabric. He made a fabric that did not make any noise and printed the surface on top of it. So it has like the foil appearance and everything of like what you would expect a chip bag to have, but it's actually made of fabric underneath.
Wow.
The one that blew my mind was a prop master had made ice cubes out of silicone, and they didn't melt, they didn't dissolve or anything like that, and they look exactly like ice cubes, but they don't make any noise because they're just literally Jello cubes.
That's creative.
Yeah, like
um,
there again, there is an entire industry of people that make props that don't make as much noise as their counterparts.
what are some like weird things that you've had to use to create noises in some of your shows? Like you say banging pots and pans. Like have you ever done like to make like a stomping noise or like a swishing noise? Do you ever use like just random things that people don't really
Oh
realize?
yeah, I've got this stick right here that I use. Like usually when I'm working, I don't want to get up. I'll like use it to like close a curtain or something like that that I can't reach. But when I swish it really quickly, it makes a good kind of sound.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't really do it here because I'll hit the microphone because I'm in a really tight space at the moment. But
Yeah.
um, there are other sounds that I've made that are really interesting. Like uh, one time I was working on a short film called Amaterasu, which was about the Japanese goddess of the same name and the myth of her relationship with Susanoo, and it was told through scrap metal puppets. Amaterasu was portrayed by this beautiful, like gold chandelier-like appearance, and Susanoo looked like a diver helmet with like a sword for an arm.
Hmm.
Uh, and one of the sounds they wanted me to portray was the kami of the universe, the
Okay.
kami of the wind, of the sand, of the waters, basically the life force of the world around us in this puppet environment. So what I ended up doing was I went to a hardware store and I found these massive wind chimes, like these wind chimes that are bigger than me, and I'm like 6'5",
Oh wow.
and like these things were big. I rented them out, and when they rang, though, they left this. They resonated for like 20 or 30 minutes, and it sounded just like a gentle hum, like a deep, almost like a Gregorian chant kind of sound.
Yeah.
And I used that, and I extrapolated the noise that made that specific vibration, and I expanded on it. I stretched it out so that it actually like kind of enveloped everything. So whenever you heard the kami of the world flowing, you heard this kind of flowing out in everything. It's a really cool sound. I actually have a sound. I actually have a prop that's similar to it, but not quite.
Hmm.
Um, are you familiar with meditation bowls?
Yeah, of course.
I have this one right here. What I love about this one, I actually found it at a Renaissance fair. And what's particularly interesting about this one is this one's one of the loudest I've ever gotten my hands on.
This,
If I really do if I caress this like stick against it really hard, it like makes this really loud noise. But if I
mhm.
do it gently, I'm only doing it ever so slightly, but it's leaving behind a big resonation.
Yeah, I can hear it. Wow. Yeah, I've never heard one. I mean, there's a Renaissance festival down the street from me I've been to before, and I've seen them a few times, but that's crazy.
Sometimes they sell really cool props, and not to mention like there's even like tons of sounds that you can make in places that you never would have imagined they would make a noise for. One of the tricks of the trade that I normally do for when I'm doing Foley for like firearms and guns is if I've got a guy who's got a handgun that's not very distinct or is just kind of like a typical 9 millimeter, I'll actually use a doorknob handle to do all the shaking of all the little metal parts in it. So because I don't own a gun, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
sounds pretty
Yeah,
close.
yeah, they're pretty close. Yeah. Um, that's impressive. Like, I'm trying to think of noises that I've heard that have really just like stood out to me. I've always loved the sound of a bagpipe, like that vibration that the bagpipes give off. It's soothing to me.
There is something that I can appreciate about bagpipes. For some people, it's like nails on a chalkboard, but I love the uniqueness to the sound.
Hmm.
I think it's like most bagpipe songs that you end up hearing is like the same bagpipe song
Yeah, yeah.
every time. But
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day, you can see him in the parade, and so isn't that the same tune as last?
but like what's interesting about the human ear is it can be tricked a lot easier than our eyes. Now, there's certainly like optical illusions out there, but the nice thing about being a sound designer is that a lot of things sound like other things. Um, and you can get away with mimicking certain noises by taking qualities out of other sound effects to add to it, or even just to play with your expectations of something. Um, for example, I'm trying to think of like a good example of something that sounds like something else. Um, there's a like if you say like you want to get the sound of like wind, but it actually
Hmm.
like has that howling noise to it, but like it almost sounds like a whistle.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times wind doesn't actually sound like that. But if you end up taking a bottle, blowing a little bit into it,
Yeah, yeah.
you can actually make that almost sound like a foghorn if you play around with it enough.
It's like the level of liquid in it or whatever.
Yeah, like if a foghorn is like a very deep, very resonant sound, whereas that vibrates a little bit. If I pitch that down a little bit, it sounds pretty close.
Yeah. I got one last story for us, all right?
All right, go for it.
All right. I jumped out of bed at 3 in the morning. It was a few months ago. Our area is always silent at night, but it sounded like a huge group of drunk people were out laughing and talking outside our back fence. When I slid the door open, it was definitely not drunk people. It was a group of coyotes.
That's what I mean when it says that our ears can be tricked very easily. Um, there are like lots of animals that can mimic certain noises for people to kind of trigger some aspects in our brain to get us to respond in a particular way. One thing that was an evolved skill of cats, for example, is normally cats don't meow at each other. Their communication is usually more olfactory and body language. Uh,
Mhm.
but as they were getting further domesticated, they started getting into this idea that they can get humans to tend to them if they mimic the sound of babies. So
Huh.
when cats yowl and are like trying to get attention, they're actually mimicking like human infants to trigger the crisis resolution gland in our brain to come and tend to them.
I've never even thought of that, and I've got cats, but I never thought about that. Do you have
Cats
any
are
pets?
smart, man. There's a lot of learned responses, but there's also like stuff that they kind of pick up as time goes on. Like my cat actually has gotten into the habit of mimicking certain noises to represent certain things to better communicate with us. She actually has a sound that she gives off to me when she wants me to turn on the water in my bathroom.
What? Mine likes to walk around when it's hungry. I know it's hungry because it'll go around and be like, "Hello." It almost sounds like it's saying hello, like trying to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
I had a
the actually, go ahead.
I actually had a story. One of my favorite stories with my cat was when she was really young. It was about 2015, 2016. She was still a kitten, and I used to take her out on walks because my neighborhood was close to like a really big throughway, and we had a gated community, so or like a gated like apartment complex. So I could put her on a leash and go out for a walk with her, and she wouldn't be like bothered by the dogs being walked or other cats or something, so on and so forth. It was the first time that it had rained since I got her, and she had never
Mhm.
experienced rain before. It was like a very alien concept to her. So she comes up to me and starts meowing the meow that she makes when she wants to go outside. And I go, I can't take you out. It's raining. She meows again, clearly not understanding. And I go, it's raining. I can't take you out. She meows one more time. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm going to get up. And I walk over to the door and I open the door, knowing full well she's not going to go outside while it's raining.
Mhm.
And I point outside and I go, look, it's raining. And she looks at it, smells the air a little bit, looks back up at me, and gives a very, very specific meow. It's the same meow that she gives me when she asks me to turn on the water faucet so that she can get a drink. She was asking me to turn the rain off.
That's good. Um,
By like a cat standards, that makes perfect sense.
uh-huh. Yeah. I have we have ferrets, and ferrets are really cool because when they get excited, they do this thing where they duke. If you're familiar with duking, yeah,
Yes.
and it's a kind of sound, but it's excited. Like it's the coolest thing because they'll like get in attack mode, like to play with each other, and just watching them go crazy and making that duking noise is
I
cool.
know
It's so
otters
cool.
do a lot. I know otters do that duking noise too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, otters actually make the duke noise too.
That's neat. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I think it must be for that particular like I don't want to say genus, like family of animals, because I think otters are otters similar to ferrets. I think they're
Yeah, in a way,
considered
they're clearly,
marsupials.
yeah, they're
I can't
similar.
remember. It's been a
Ferrets are
long
more of
time.
a weasel
Forgive
family. I'm
me,
not sure.
science. Forgive me, people who are much more in touch with the dichotomy of the animals. I am a regrettable dumb boy that bangs pots together for money. I am the
uh,
simple.
just to change direction a little bit, are you into martial arts movies at all?
I do really appreciate some martial arts movies, but a lot of mine are more tongue in cheek
Yeah.
than some would probably some martial arts aficionados would care to accept.
I mentioned that because one of my favorite is characters or actors is Tony Jaa. Are you familiar with Tony Jaa?
I'm not. No.
In a lot of his, he does like Ong Bak. He does. There's a couple like American films that he does. I'm trying to think of some. Anyways, a lot of them are foreign, but when he does his fight scenes, they like put detail into like the cracking of bones when he's doing the techniques and stuff, and it's just
Hmm.
so enticing to me because I don't see you don't see that much detail in the noises of the breaking of bones during fight scenes and stuff that they do.
Oh, but there's a lot of detail that does go into them because a lot of times when people are getting punched and stuff, it's just like slap, 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 punch, slap, slap, slap. It's not very impactful. If you want to get that like really heavy sound of like somebody getting hit, you take a paddle to a sack of rice, or you take like like a bunch of celery and like twist it really hard, and it gives that like really satisfying crunch sound as someone's
Uh-huh.
bones are breaking.
People use that like for bone breaking noises. Celery.
Yeah, yeah, celery is a pretty common one. Carrots are another.
Oh, that's crazy.
Cabbage is a good one because the
Such
idea is that
common
like
stuff.
it's crispy but brittle.
Uh-huh.
So like you can like crush it for that. Like if you want to like get like a skull chopping or whatever, like taking like a bat to a melon is
Hmm.
something, or a pumpkin.
I feel like if you were to strip a lot of the sound effects from some film, like major films, how crazy different they would sound if it was just people talking or playing out the scenes without all
If
the.
it was just one to one, however everything sounds like as realistically as possible, it wouldn't be as compelling. It would almost feel empty. It seems paradoxical, but there's an expectation people have when they think about a movie on how something is supposed to sound. There actually is a lot to be said about leaning into the stereotype of a sound effect.
Mhm.
Um, for example, fire doesn't actually make a lot of noise. Usually it's like a quiet roar or more of a kind of sound.
Mhm.
But we actually think of the sounds of like flamethrowers, of air passing through, of explosions, and like a very almost swishy kind of sound as it roars through. And sometimes sound designers lean into that kind of thing
Uh-huh.
because it's what we expect. Um, One of the things that I do a lot when I'm building sound effects for movies is layering, where
Mhm.
if I'm going to be creating a sound like a punch, it's not just the sound of my fist hitting another piece of meat. Um, I what I would do is I would take the pieces of it and build it almost like a sandwich. You have the base, the very like baseline bedrock of like the bread that is like the deep thump of the like it hitting your chest or something. The sound of it actually slapping against the skin of a or something like a or a clap like that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And the sound of the fist going through the air like a and you combine all that together, you got a and it sounds like really satisfying.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where people will combine aspects of sounds that you normally wouldn't associate with a punch, uh, like like hitting a barrel, like a kind of
Yeah.
sound,
Yeah.
or um, or like taking two boards and clapping them together, or even like taking a whip and like having the whip crack the moment that the land hits, so it sounds a lot more impactful.
Do you think that that changes depending on like the style of the film too, whether it's like a
It
comical
does.
or like a scene where it's intense drama?
Like I work on when I'm working on Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss, a lot of
Mm.
the a lot of the hits in that are very cartoony. Like there's like horse
Yeah.
sounds or like donkeys or bonks and boinks, just because that's the style of that show. Whereas
Yeah.
like something like The Matrix, it's a lot more pronounced. It's exaggerated in the same
Hmm.
way that the cinematography in The Matrix is exaggerated.
Yeah. Um, what do you is there what is I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of how to word it. Um, what style do you like most working on as far as like editing the sounds of?
I absolutely love going into high concept design. What I mean by that is it's not where the realism has been tossed out the window entirely, and it allows me the opportunity to recontextualize how things sound in the world. Case in point, one of the things that I did as an experiment when I was working on Hell of a Boss is there's a character named Verosika Mayday, who's a
Yeah.
very intimidating presence, and also the former lover of our main character Blitz.
Mhm.
When
Is
she's
she the
walking,
pop? Is she the pop
she's the
singer?
pop star. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
the pop
Yeah.
singer. She's always got like this very like antagonistic presence to her, and everything about her is like very sharp and very acerbic or acidic, I suppose would be the better word. Um, so I had this thought where even though like she's a succubus, I had this idea of having like a very sense of like a pointedness to her character at all times. And the thought that occurred to me was, what if instead of using regular high heels, I used swords for when she's walking? So when she's walking, you hear almost kind of a tink, 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 and that's because like
Yes.
her heels are so pointed and so sharp
Mhm.
that they're almost metallic when she's walking with them. Um, like getting into that kind of abstract can be a lot of fun. Not to mention playing into the emotional and storytelling aspects of a sound can really leave a big impact. One of the most complex characters I've ever had to sound design was Alistair, who has so many things going on. There's actually like 4 layers of sound design happening with his character at any given time. Everything down to the radio effect that comes out of his mouth
Mhm.
is informing you about his personality, the way that it like wavers in and out of this radio effect, down to like even the syllable.
There's a are you familiar with like some 90s techno at all or
Yeah.
at all? Have you heard of Benny Benassi?
Oh yeah.
How
Satisfaction and Love is Gonna Save
yes,
Us were two of my
and
favorite
how
songs
he
during the
kind of
90s.
has the when he sings and like that there's like a bass drop when the kind it almost drowns out the vocals to kind of play into his songs. I love that.
There's a music group. These two guys that I love every bit of their music is called Infected Mushroom. And
Yeah,
what they will
yeah.
do is they'll take like vocals and run them through MIDI keyboards and like just shatter the vibration spectrum of it and create like this truly unique sounding like metallic robotic voices. I actually have a couple of their plugins that I use for my sound design because
Oh wow.
Polyverse worked with Infected Mushroom a couple years back to build their own plugins for this exact kind of thing, and it's so much fun to use.
There's another one, a band, OK Go. Have you heard of OK Go?
I've not heard of OK Go.
If you ever check them out on YouTube, they create there's this song. I'm trying to think of the name of it. They basically set this whole desert up with like old beat up pianos and
Mm-hmm.
like violins, and then they have these like wires hanging out of this car. And they, as they're driving down the track, it's hitting the notes on these pianos and like these chimes and the violins, and that's the whole track. The whole track of the song is them driving this car through the desert.
That's cool.
Uh-huh. Hey, it's been a blast having you on, and this is totally different for me because I've never had a sound effects guy on. Like this is
Yeah,
really
well,
neat.
I'd love to share with you a little something that I've been working on that
Sure,
might be of
please
interest
do.
to you, since you
Uh-huh.
really enjoyed listening to Magus Elgar.
Hmm.
I have been working on trying to make a second season of that show, but before I jump down that direction, I want to try a little something smaller to kind of test the waters of crowdfunding.
Hmm.
I have a series that I'm working on called Clutch, a Kobold story. If you're a
Okay.
fan of Dungeons and Dragons, you'd be familiar with a kobold, which is this 3 foot tall, simple, derpy little reptilian that worships dragons. Um, and my story is about 3 of them going on an adventure to try and find a new dragon master after they accidentally kill their old one. It takes place in the same universe as Magus Elgar, but like many years in the past when dragons were more prevalent.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and we're working on building a Kickstarter for it. Right now, if you follow us on Twitter under like twitter.com/clutch kobolds with a Z at the end, you can follow us and see what we're up to and when we're going to be having our Kickstarter going live. I don't know when this episode's going to be going live, but I will definitely give you the link to the Kickstarter when we get it
Please,
up and going.
please do.
Um, we are planning on announcing soon. If you sign up for the to help us make the show, we're planning on making 6 episodes, about a half hour in length. So it's not a very
Hmm.
long series, but it's going to have a lot of like really big voice actors attached to it. Like we've got Michael Kovac, who played Angel Dust in Has Been Hotel, is going to be our lead.
Hmm.
Um, if you do sign up with us and back us on day one, we're going to be offering like these cute little commemorative pins of our main characters, Strat the
Uh,
Trapmaker, and we've got ideas for stretch goals like extra episodes. We have plans to try and build a prototype plushie of our main character. And if things go really well, we're hoping to work with an animation team to build an animated short about our kobolds,
oh, that's awesome.
which would be a lot of fun because you've actually, I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen, but we actually have animated shorts of Magus Elgar too.
Yeah, I've been to the website and it actually shows the characters too and kind of gives you a description of them. That's so cool.
Yeah.
How does so with Megas Elgar, has that been a big hit on Spotify and all the platforms?
Well, in terms of like the visibility of the show, we get like about 500 downloads a month, which isn't too bad. Like that's
Yeah,
like
it's not bad at all.
that's pretty simple for like a series that I haven't made new episodes of it in a long
Hmm.
time because I paid for that show out of pocket,
Hmm.
and making those kinds of things, they're not cheap if you want to pay the designers, the writers, the actors and stuff what they're worth.
Hmm.
I did like a lot of the work on it, but it was still like a very expensive affair.
Yeah.
Um, so we're still like we when we did release Magus Elgar, we got nominated for Best Original Work by the Audio Publishers Association. We got nominated for like 5 different awards by the Audioverse Awards. Recently, we got nominated for Best Fantasy, Best Kids Show for at the New Jersey Film Festival.
My
And we
10-year-old
also won a
actually,
Telly Award for some of our promotional stuff as well.
that's awesome. Even my 10-year-old, I was playing it with him in the car with me and everything. He liked it.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
meant
how
for
it's
it's
all
like meant
age.
for all ages. Like if it's a great screen free experience for kids. Like I played it for my godson a while back when he was like 6 or 7 years old, and he loved it.
Hmm. And I noticed like your YouTube, like Has Been Hotel and all that is huge. Like your the views are massive.
Yeah, like working on that production was a dream come true because I'd been watching them for a long time, and I really
Hmm.
wanted to help them out in some way by offering my sound services. And Viv was a delight to work with because she gave me a lot of creative freedom on that project. I'm still working with her on Hell of a Boss now.
Yeah.
I'm actually working with George Peters and Rob Hargraves over at Atlas Oceanic, which they're the guys that do the sound design for a lot of DC comics.
Oh wow.
Like recently, they did the Harley Quinn TV series on HBO Max, which is a
Hmm.
phenomenal show if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it. Not for
I've
kids
seen
though,
it.
obviously.
I know, yeah, clearly. I have seen a little bit of it because I watch HBO every now and then. I'm mostly on Netflix and Hulu and Prime, but yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, man. It's what else? Is there anything else that you want to let everybody know about? I mean,
But yeah,
other
but like
than
right now, the big one that I have is Clutch a Kobold Story. If you look it up, if you look up Clutch a Kobold Story on YouTube, we have like a 6 minute preview of like what the
Mhm,
show would sound like if we made a full version of it.
mhm,
And right now, I'm trying to get like the Kickstarter off the ground. Like I said, it's a very new experience for me, so I'm still trying to get the hang of like what I should be doing, what I should be presenting when I go
mhm.
forward with it. So I don't have the exact date on when I'm going to do the Kickstarter, but I can definitely tell you it will be sometime late October.
But now the Twitter feed is live though, right? People can find
Yes, the
you on
Twitter
it.
feed is live, and there's like lots of videos talking about the kobolds. I believe Book the Booker, one of our characters on the show, started gushing about dragons for a little bit and started talking about his favorite dragons in media because he's a weirdo. But you know, sometimes the kobolds will jump onto the Twitter feed and just talk about random things, or point at kobolds that they've seen on the internet.
When we are done, will you send me the link to that? That way
I
I can
will
have it in the
absolutely do that.
description. I'll also attach Magus Elgar's website and even the Spotify link to that as well. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and I'll continue listening to it because, again, I've never really thought about listening to audiobooks, but Magus Elgar is very gripping. It really is.
Yeah, we actually had like a lot of really positive feedback when it first came out. I've ran into maybe 2 people that hate it with a passion. Everybody else likes it though. That's the best part.
You have to take negativity and just
Oh no,
make it
like
a
honestly,
positive.
I'm fine with it. Anytime that somebody gives me like negative feedback about it, like okay, this is not good or this is a problem, I will take it and I will digest it and see like the valuable part of it and try to make it a lot better.
Mhm.
Um, Case in point, one of my biggest critiques that I got was on Hazbin Hotel. A lot of people complained there were too many sound effects. Like there was like so much noise, and they were really annoyed by it. And I took that to heart, and I said, "All right, I'll dial back a little bit." And
Mhm.
I've only gotten better since.
Now, do you have a team with you when you do that stuff?
Yes. Right now, I'm going to be for Clutch a Kobold Story. I'm working with Melody Gun Productions, which they've worked with. They've worked alongside me for productions like some of James Franco's movies, a lot of documentaries,
Mhm.
a lot of independent films, as well as helping me make Magus Elgar. And I've also pairing up with a new studio called Network Nexus, which are going to be helping me with casting and acting fulfillment.
All
And
right.
they're also going to be trying their hand at doing some of the sound design with me supervising them. So the
Okay.
sound design will be by me, but I'll also be working with a bunch of other people underneath me since it'll be like my first time doing like a big sound supervision position to observe their work and make sure that they are up to the standard that I'm looking for because I'm a little bit hyper focused on the kind of design that I usually want in my productions.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And I'm looking forward to it, especially if it's. You said it'll be the same universe as Mega Silver.
It's going to be in the same universe as Magus Elgar. It's going to have the same quality and as Magus Elgar, and my writing team from Magus Elgar are going to be working with me. So it's going to have a very similar kind of humor to it.
All right. Sounds good. Is there anything else that you have? Anything at all?
None that I can think of at the moment. If you want to follow my work, you can find me on Twitter at Magus Serling, which I'll probably give him a link to. You
Yes,
can also
please.
go to my website, kennedyphillips.org, so you can see
Okay.
more of my other stuff. And please give Magus Elgar a try if you aren't sure about Clutch. I can guarantee you that if you really like Magus Elgar, you are going to adore Clutch.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And I'd love to have you on again. I hope you enjoyed it because, like I said, I didn't want it. I don't like for my shows to be just strictly interviews, because I feel like there's so many podcasts out there nowadays. There's damn near a million of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I try to kind of twist it a little bit to kind of get you. That's why I throw in these random stories that you don't expect because it kind of makes you a little off topic. It's not doesn't make you expect the questions.
You're just making me think if I come here next time, I got to provide some of my own stories for you. Like that, the next time that we end up getting a chance to meet up, I will tell you a little bit about the time that I lived on a sailboat and the time that I sailed around the world with my family.
That sounds like a topic for another show for sure. Was that for a while? Did you do that for quite a while?
A year and a half.
Wow. Yes, that's definitely another episode.
All right, man.
All right. Hey, I will talk to you later, and I will send you the link to everything once I get it all uploaded as well.
All right, cool. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, of course. You have a wonderful night. All right.
See you later.
Later.